Yeah, so uh thank you to everybody who did join. Yeah, if Margot, I'm not sure if we'll be able to promote a call-in phone number, but definitely thank you so much for being able to be here any way you could. Super sorry for those difficulties. And my cousin Tori will go ahead and maybe step in a little bit, and she'll be able to ask me a question or two to take some of that time. And thank you, Tori, so much for that suggestion. That's really helpful. I'm going to go ahead and open us up. Hey, Young, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We really wanted to be able to pull this event together before the end of the month. This is Women's History Month, and we just find it so, so important to acknowledge Native women and the place that they hold, the power and knowledge that is passed from one generation of Native women to the next, which is why we have more than one generation of Native women here. Really trying to highlight the importance of the intergenerational knowledge passed between one Native woman to the next, and then going into the future, and the way that that knowledge helps shape us as people, not only in our work, but in our lives, and the value that it brings to who we are. So I really want to thank all of our amazing participants who are here and everybody who tried to be here. And go ahead and go into just a few announcements. This webinar is sponsored by Save California Salmon. And so this is something that we're able to do because of the amazing participants, the amazing community members that we have, and just really want to thank everybody who supports us, and drop our link in the chat if you're feeling like you can support a little more today. We do accept donations for all of our work to be able to sponsor more events like this. So the link to our donations and website will be dropped in the chat. And then also going into the future, we're working on a restoration series currently with really a lot of amazing sponsors through Cal Poly, the Yurok Tribe, many other great organizations and sponsors. And that will be, our next episode will be April 5th at noon. All that information can be found on our social medias, on our website. Also, we'll be dropping a tiny URL in the chat if you'd like to sign up and watch that webinar. It'll be about restoring the Central Valley watershed. And we have Mechoopda Tribe and California Trout joining us for that event. And with all of that being said, I, again, just really want to thank everybody for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to our presenters. We'll go start with Tori McConnell. If you want to come off mute and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Okay. Ayuki Koda Inkun Nanatwaipi Tori. And my name is Tori, and I am a Yurok tribal member, and I am also of Karuk descent. I am a local youth artist, and I'm a Karuk language apprentice to master speaker Julian Ling. I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thank you, Danielle, for hosting this space. Save California Salmon, Regina. Thank you to our beautiful elders who are here, Lynn and Susan, and also for Tamaya. I'm really honored to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. A fun fact, me and Tori are one floor apart right now. Tori, I'm really thankful you can be here, always inspired by the work that you do, and the art that you're able to create. We use it through SES all of the time, because just the way that your art makes people feel is and brings people together is so beautiful. So thank you for being here, and we'll go ahead and pass it on to Lynn if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Ayuki Kawada, Ayukui, Hayang, Nanatui Lin, Na Karu Yuruk Karu Hupa Waadad, Ni Achicha, Kawada Nu Kovan, Pipasupa. I'm happy to be here with all of you today, and Yo twa Danielle Karu Kowura. Thank you, Danielle, and all of you. So that's who I am. So I don't know if I'm just introducing myself, I'm assuming right now, and then we'll go from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lynn. Again, always inspired by all of the amazing women in this room. So if we want to go ahead and pass down to Tamaya Wiki, and Tamaya, you can pass it to Sue when you're done.
Ayakui, hello everybody. My name is Tamaya Wiki. I'm 17 years old. I belong to the Yurok people of Northern California and the Maori people of Aotearoa or New Zealand, and I'm currently a senior in high school. And I'm working right now I'm living in Ashland, Oregon, and working with the Rogue Climates Youth Action Team organization, but I've interned for SCS in the past. And I'm really grateful to be here today. I'll pass it on to my auntie Sue Maston.
We can't hear you. You have to turn off your mute. You're still on mute.
Maybe you can ask to unmute, Michaela, if you don't mind. That might help.
Uh-oh.
Just a few more technical difficulties. Thank you so much for sticking with us, everybody. This Zoom world is not always easy to navigate. So as soon as Sue can come off mute, we'll have her introduce herself.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Somehow I got to a frame that froze me and I can't see where the buttons are. So I apologize. Ayakui Neknau, Susan Maston, and I am honored and privileged to be here with you this evening. And I'm so looking forward to hearing my wonderful colleagues talk tonight and welcoming your questions when we're through.
Beautiful, thank you. We do have one of our presenters who called in. We're gonna try and unmute her and let her talk as an attendee. We're not able to promote her as a panelist just with some Zoom complications of calling in. So we're gonna try and let her introduce herself if you wanna work on that, Michaela. And Margot, you might be able to come through and introduce yourself if Michaela invites you as a participant.
Hey, we can see you, or at least your phone number. So you're still good though.
Yeah, I think if you just come off mute, Margot, you'll be able to introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Margot Robbins. Can you hear me?
Perfect, yes.
Hooray! So happy to be here with you guys. What an honor to be part of this panel. I am a Yurok tribal member and I live on the Upper Yurok Reservation. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Cultural Fire Management Council, previous Indian Education Director for the Klamath Trinity Joint Unified School District, and I had the wonderful honor and privilege during that time to work with Danielle Frank as one of the water protectors at the Hoopa High School. So thank you for the invitation to join all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot. Always an honor to share space with all of these amazing women. With those intros out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and get started with some questions. So I will start with asking Margot a quick question if you wanna go ahead and stay off mute, Margot. My first question to you is, we, like you said, we worked together a lot when you were the director for Indian Education, and I was able to even participate in some curriculum that you helped create and that started at a really young age for me. So I just want to know if you could share a little bit about it with us about what the importance of proper education is for Native youth and all youth, but Native youth specifically, and how you were able to contribute to that when you were with the Indian Education Office.
Yes, so it is, I think, fairly common knowledge, at least in Indian country, that the curriculum in the schools has huge gaps in the education about Native Americans, not only in history, but as actively live in our culture today. And so our program at Klamath Trinity School did a big project of creating curriculum aligned with the California Common Core standards as based on the history and culture of the 3 local tribes, the Hupa, Yurok, and Kuruk. It was aligned to English language arts standards because often teachers will not teach science or history because of the huge pressure on them for testing results. And so we created kindergarten through 12th grade curriculum that was interactive. It addressed multiple modalities of learning. Most teachers know that standing in front of the classroom, talking at students and then having them write things on paper is not really the best way to get kids involved in their education or actually to retain things. And so we used information about our local tribes, prehistory, meaning before we lived here in our home places, there was spirit beings that created the world as we know it. And then humans came, and we had thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history pre-contact, pre-colonization. And so people a lot of times tend to think that history started when non-native people arrived on our shores, and that is far from the truth. And so we made a big effort to help instill in students a pride of who they are as Native people, and to learn about our homelands, you know, where, and the worldview of Native people. The lessons were interactive to get kids involved in their own education, and they really seem to appreciate that. And all the while, they're still meeting the Common Core standards in English language arts. I think that as Native people, the onslaught of genocide against us as a people kind of left Native people with this loss of information about who we are as Native people and who we're meant to be. And that loss of identity has resulted in all of the social maladies that we find affect people in Indian country.
Thank you, Margot. Always a pleasure to hear from you. I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask a question for me or talk about any of our, ask me about any of our time together. And then we'll go ahead and move on to our next pair. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate, always an honor to learn from you.
So one of the things that we recognize is that there are a lot of threats against our homelands, our natural resources, land bases, and also water. And so Regina from the Save California Salmon partnered with us in doing water curriculum and to alert students to the threats to our river. So not only are they diverting water from our rivers, but also they wanted to put a gas pipeline under it. And so we went into the high school classes, Hupa High School, to engage the students And Danielle was one of the many students that became really actively involved in protecting our waters and was really instrumental in helping to educate other people about that, people of all ages. And so I was just kind of wondering, Danielle, of what you thought of that experience and how that may have affected the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you, Margot. That was, Margot gave me my first public speaking gig, so definitely want to appreciate the way that you were able to help me recognize some of the importance that, you know, the way that our world works essentially, and the way that we do have a large voice and we do play a large part in a lot of these big conversations at the state level, at the national level. And so really introducing me to policy, Margot helped me really shape a future for myself in a way that I can be an advocate for our water and for our people. And so that first experience of being able to go into my own classrooms with my own peers and talk about the way that our water is affected by these outside problems, the way that, you know, these decision makers in our state and the nation don't really take into consideration culture. They don't take into consideration river-based communities. They really focus on greed and money and, you know, trying to capitalize on everything that we have, including our water. And so being able to be in front of my peers and explain this issue and kind of talk about the intersectionality in Indian country between the health of our river and the health of our people, and all of the ways that we're so connected to the land, and the way that, you know, we've watched the decline in health of our lands. We've also watched the decline in health of our people, and how that's really intertwined. And a lot of the struggles that we dealt with when I was in high school came directly because of the loss of resources for our people. So just being able to, you know, help make sense of that for a lot of my peers, and then be in the space where we had the Hoopa Valley High School Water Protectors Club. That was really amazing to see so many students wanting to get involved with the State Water Board. Margot and Billy Sanderson with Indian Education Office took us to our first water board hearings, where we got to testify to the water board about the importance of like not only like what was wrong with our water and the way that flows were working, but the way that these meetings were inaccessible to us, and how they were over 10 hours away, and just not something that Native families from low-income communities could make a reality. So we did get to go in that space, thankfully, and we demanded that we get meetings closer. And we had water board hearings in Reading that year with many tribes, many generations, and that was a really big part of seeing what the Native youth voice can do in all of these movements and all of these spaces. And so building on that, I've been able to participate in some of these policy conversations at the national level, at the international level. And it really started because I saw the way that my voice had, and my peers' voice had an impact in those spaces, the way we were able to make people listen, and the way that we were able to make things a little bit better and work towards something a lot better. So just being able to, you know, get that first inspiration at such a young age has really motivated me to, you know, do larger things. And not only that, but being able to work with Youth Forever. I'm currently the youth coordinator for Save California Salmon, and it is a dream job because I get to bring that intersection of fighting for our lands and the future of our people, and bringing our youth into that movement, encouraging them to always advocate for themselves and their voice. And it all started from, you know, getting those first experiences of public speaking and talking about these complex issues, and being able to access the best knowledge about them from people like Margot. I've heard Susan Masson talk plenty of times, and every time it just, you know, says something for me, seeing the art from Tori and Lynn and the way it is kind of, you know, centered around who we are, just all of that just always inspires me. And that knowledge is what drives me to, you know, want to change the world. So I really appreciate all of that. And I again want to thank you for being here, Margot. And I think we can go ahead and pass on to Maya and Sue, if one of you want to if you guys want to come out and have your moment. Zadia, Waklau, Margot, we really appreciate you being here how you could, and look forward to catching up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. I wish that we could have seen your beautiful face. I think one of the things that I'm noticing is that each of us that are participating tonight, and I don't know if everyone knows, we're all related. And so each of us comes from a village where there was leadership and had people in a village. And so sometimes that ancestral knowledge and leadership comes through, and we don't always have a choice. And especially when we're still connected to ceremony and to the lands and the resources. You know, we have responsibilities. The Creator gave each of us responsibilities, and our job is to fine tune those gifts that the Creator gave us and the ancestral knowledge that runs through our veins. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're the best that we can be. And that means that we get an education, we talk to our elders and to the leadership from our tribes and communities, because history has a way of repeating itself, and it doesn't matter how much or how little we have, there are always going to be those who will come to take it. And so it's not good enough for us to be equals to our opponents. We have to be better. And we can only do that by making sure that we are the best prepared, because our responsibility is much greater, because we hold that responsibility to protect and preserve for future generations. And we can't afford to lose a right, or to lose a piece of land, or to lose our culture and our traditions, because that's our responsibility, and that ensures that our people will be here and for all time. And so we, having that responsibility, need to ensure that we know the history of our tribe, because that does repeat, so that we are able to meet whatever challenge comes our way. It's important for us to live a balanced life. That means that we need to be mentally, physically, spiritually solid and strong, because that's our foundation. And when people come against us, then we are strong and able to overcome anything that comes our way. And so I think that's an important message for youth, because you can't do the job that you have the responsibility to do without having all of those things in place. So the other thing that I wanted to be sure to share was that, it's important that we open doors, and sometimes you have to knock doors down. It's important that we're always the first to the table and the last to leave the table, because one person makes all of the difference in a discussion. And we need to be the ones who are shaping policy and laws, and we know our people and their needs the best. And so it has to be us that's at the table advocating for those policies and those laws that work best for our people. And you can't do that unless you are at the table. So it's important for us to step up when we're called for leadership, to ensure that, we always have a place at the table. I also think it's really important that, that we know that each of you has that ability. I wasn't, I didn't know I was going to be a leader. And yet here I am. I've been at the state, the local, and the national level, playing key roles in shaping policies and laws in Indian country. And that wasn't always my decision. Sometimes people make that decision for you. But when an opportunity opens, or a door opens for you, it is your responsibility to step through and do the best job that you can do. And so I think I'll let Tamaya talk, and then we can see where that goes from there. Tamaya, I think it's so exciting. I'm so proud of Tamaya and her accomplishments. And we just found out tonight that she got accepted to Yale, Harvard, Columbia, and every school she wanted to go to so far. And so she is going to outdo whatever I've done 100-fold. And I'm just so excited about her leadership and her abilities and what she's going to bring to the future. So Tamaya, I think it's important for you to share with everyone, you know, what made you decide to step into a leadership role, and especially in climate, and to be a voice and an advocate for climate at your young age. And then also, what do you think that Indigenous leadership for youth in the future is going to look like?
Thank you so much. I'm really, this panel is so special tonight because I get to do it with my Auntie Sue, who is a wonderful leader, but also a mentor in so many ways. And I feel really grateful for the guidance that I've had and all of the advice that I've gotten. I definitely wouldn't have gone to any of those schools if it wasn't for so much of the advice of my auntie and my family. So it really is a community effort, I believe. And thank you for everything that you shared. I think one of the important things, again, that you touched on is who we are and the people that we come from. So part of what Auntie Sue shared is not knowing that you're going to be a leader. And in many ways, there's a lot of times where I understand that my role in advocacy it comes from a deeper obligation, right? It's not something I necessarily chose or anticipated that I was going to do in the same way. And it really starts at the core of Yurok values as people from the village of Requi too, where the Klamath River meets the Pacific Ocean. We understand that the health and well-being of the land is intrinsically linked to the health and well-being of the people. And it's our responsibility to maintain balance, which means that we have a reciprocal relationship with the land. And colonization acts as the opposite of that, acting as though one is dominant over the other. And so I think from the moment I was born into this family and into this this strong family of land stewards, it has become my obligation to protect this land because I know that this land is me and this is a generational fight. But also this has been reinforced throughout my life. So even though this is a value that has been said and named, it's also been exemplified in all of the generations before me. So actually, I grew up going to community organizing meetings. I would stay, my parents worked full time, and I would stay with my mom after school when she was running meetings, talking about how do we need to improve on a systemic level health and equity in our community, and what does that mean? And I saw people like my Auntie Susan Maston. We went to WeWin, Women Empowering Women in Indigenous Nations, and being able to see all of these strong Native women come from across the country to say, what does leadership look like and how do we foster that in our community? And so being able to come from this family and then see the people around me, I know that there are solutions, and I feel really grateful for that. And I started although these are values that I kept throughout my life, I started organizing in middle school through my Native American After School program, which gave me a voice in media and journalism. And that quickly changed my perspective on the way that we tell stories to advocate for our land, but also to amplify the voices of our communities. And so this resulted in a lot of different opportunities, like interning with Save California Salmon for the summer, going on a red road to DC, where a totem pole went on a prayer journey from Washington State to Washington, DC, and being able to document that. But all of those experiences that I had really came from leaders and family members around me, encouraging me and showing me that there are solutions. And even, so all this to say, it's really about investing in youth and being able to have access to education about your family history, your community history, and knowing the people you come from. And so because I've it's been reinforced throughout my life and throughout these experiences that the people I come from are stewards of the land, and that we're leaders and that we're strong and that we have a right to fish and to protect ourselves, and that our voices are important. Because that's been named and exemplified, I've been able to be encouraged and supported. And that made it easier to navigating international spaces. When I got a little bit later into high school, when I was 16, I was one of the youngest delegates at the United Nations Conference of the Parties, or COP26, which is the annual climate change conference. And through there, I quickly realized Indigenous people are actively excluded from those spaces and not advocated for, despite being the most impacted. But because I knew my values as a person who belongs to the House of Layuk on the mouth of the river, and I know my values, I was able to navigate that and stay true to myself. And I think that's really true about what Susan touched on, is so much of this is staying true to your values. And even if you're still figuring yourself out and what that looks like in different advocacy ways, I believed in myself. And even when there weren't spaces for us, I made sure that I fought so that there was a space for me to show up. So again, a lot of this isn't just one leader, but really the collective of a community empowering each other, educating each other, and supporting each other. So I definitely appreciate that. And I know I was just going to go back to Susan. Again, she's such an influential role model in my life, from being the former president of the National Congress of American Indian, and chair of the Yurok tribe. I was just wondering, Auntie, for you, the importance of having Native women in leadership positions, both on a local and national level, why that's important, and also what kind of advice do you have for not just Indigenous youth, but I think Indigenous people too, wanting to go into these leadership, advocacy, and organizing kind of work.
And so I will focus my remarks on women because we're celebrating Women's History Month. And so, but it also applies to our young males too as well. But it's important because women have, we carry that knowledge that we share with our children and our grandchildren and our nieces and our nephews, because that's part of who we are as Native women. We are the ones that kind of transfer a lot of that knowledge down to the next generation. And it's important because women have a tendency to be the peacemaker, and because we raise children and because we settle disputes amongst our children or siblings, and we're able to multitask because we have multiple responsibilities of the home and of raising the children, that we look at things differently in the world. And so that voice is extremely important at the table in order to reach consensus, in order to find common ground, in order to, because those are things instilled from us from the time that we're little. I did want to talk a little bit about, because Tamaya touched on it, and one of the most important things is we have to be very mindful about our words and our actions, because that is how our youth learn from us. And so we have to be very intentional about our support for them, our encouragement for them, our empowering them, our uplifting of them, because they need to feel like they can do anything and everything. And that's what allowed for me to be successful, is my grandparents and my mother, especially my grandmother and my mother, instilled that confidence in me that I could be or do anything that I wanted to. So I never thought I couldn't do anything, and I never thought no could stop me. And so that's what's made the difference between me being able to be successful in my role for the people, has been that balance that I've come from, and that prayerful balance, because I prayed constantly for myself to be the best I could be because I was working for the people. And so, and that connection, being here at the mouth of the Klamath River and praying here on this ground where my ancestors have prayed since the beginning of time, is what gave me that strength and courage to be able to be successful in my role. And I think the other thing is, because I was able to be here on the land where we have come from and pray here on this land, there were many things that I did not learn from a book or from anyone else, that is only through traditional knowledge. And I know that's how I was able to tap into that. And so that's why you hear me say how important that is for you to be prayerful. Our people prayed for everything and prayed all day long to be the best they could be, because our village depended on that and our families depended on that. And so, and that's where we need to build that connection again, to instill that in our children. But I can say it's exciting. Our children have dreams and hopes and think that they can be someone if they can see that person. And I like to feel that I've been able to be that person because I was in leadership role here for the Yurok people, but also as a national leader. Because when I was president of the National Congress of American Indians, there were very few women leaders. And so I like to think that I had some influence on that. I hope that I did. And that's why you will always see me step up to the plate, because I feel that we have to give our young girls that hope and dream that they can be whoever they want to be. And we only do that by having those role models amongst us. So Tamaya, I don't know if you want to share anything. I think we have used all of our time and I don't want to impose on the next speaker's time. So if we could turn it back over to Lynn or.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. That was, like I said, always phenomenal. I'm honored to be sitting alongside all of you, even if it is virtually. And I definitely, definitely love everything that both of you shared, inspired by both of you. And I would love to pass it on to Tori and Lynn to take it away. Our beautiful artists, they're going to be sharing some of their work, and I'm super excited to see it.
Thank you, Danielle.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show some of my artwork, and then Tori will do that when she is ready to speak about her work. Okay.
All right, are you ready, Lynn?
Oh, almost. Let's see. I have to. Go back to where I need to be. I'm trying to get it. Let's see.
That's a beautiful,
Oh, here we go.
beautiful picture right there, though.
So, Tori, do you want to start with your questions? And then
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we had a pretty fun conversation earlier about this piece. Lynn, would you be able to share a little bit about the influence behind your work and the stories behind it as well?
Yeah. So the things that influence, when I think about what has influenced my work, and you can see that through the images that I'm going to share with you. Let's see. Okay. That one of the biggest influences, of course, is the land, which you guys have all touched on, which is so much a part of us as Indian people and people of this area, the rivers and the mountains. And another thing is our ceremonies, which has been a big part of my life since I was pretty young, and still is. and our material wealth, you might say, or our culture through our traditional art forms. The baskets have been a great influence in my life. And to me, our basket weavers are like, to me, the Van Goghs of our culture, of our art. You know, I value their beauty and the work that they do. I'm just in awe of that, and it has had a big influence on my life. I've had basket weavers in my family, as I know all of you have, and we all value that. And this was a piece that was inspired by baskets in a museum, which was a mixed feeling, which you probably all have experienced, of joy and sadness at the same time. But here we are. But the wonderful thing is there's a lot of young basket weavers now that are learning and just doing beautiful work. And so I'm always so amazed and so happy to see that. And again, our ceremonies have been an important part of my life. And again, I was fortunate to be part of this renaissance of our culture, of our ceremonies, of our languages, of, you know, our traditional arts, of all the things that we are still doing and that are still flourishing and growing in new ways, and yet are still connected to our old ways and to our ancestors. And the belief that we have are still connected to the beliefs that our ancestors had, and how these ceremonies and traditions helped keep us in balance and help our people to thrive through thousands of years, as was mentioned earlier, and that those will help us to continue in moving forward for our future generations.
That's beautiful. That kind of plays in perfectly into the next question, which is about creativity and its role in our communities ever since time began. So can you share a little bit about why you believe that exploring creativity is so important for us as Native people?
Yeah, I think that our ancestors, our Indian people everywhere, have always had that creative spirit, that we value the beauty of our environment and of who we are. And you can see that in our traditional arts, our regalia, our baskets, and all of that. And I think it's still important today because it connects us to all these things, to our ancestors and to our environment. And it brings healing to us in that balance, just like we get from our ceremonies. Art has that power as well to connect us to all those things that were valued by our ancestors, and that it can empower us to express ourselves in not only old ways, like just going out and gathering materials and connecting with the traditional life for that our regalia is made from, and that spiritual energy that we feel in doing all these things and making and creating, whether it's traditional art and now contemporary art. I think we still have that creative spirit that's in our art, no matter what art form it is, whether it's sculpture or making a basket or a painting. That creative spirit that's connected all the way back to our ancestors is still there, and it's still valuable today in so many ways. So let's see. And just again, being involved in the, bringing back tradition and ceremonies. This represents my daughter's coming of age ceremony, Ihuk ceremony, we call it among the Karuk. And then the stories that tell about where things started, like our Ihuk ceremony began with their animal people from before human beings came. They brought these ceremonies to us. And that's what this story is about. And this one as well. And then bringing back traditions such as our women's tattoo, which is so exciting to see so many young women adopting this tradition and how it empowers women as well as these other things. This was kind of my expression of going through this transition myself. And also working with young people to teach them about our traditional stories and our traditional things like fishing, different types of fishing, and our first salmon ceremony. I worked with high school students at McKinleyville High. That's these last two panels. And about the current issues that are going on about the salmon and the fish kill that happened in 2001 or 2, I can't remember. And the dams on the rivers and the pollution and all the struggles around that we're still going through today. And hopefully we are moving forward to those solutions of removing those dams. And this was an expression of that hope of renewal, and that we have to sometimes swim against the river, as Sue was talking about, in order to achieve our goals or to reach the solution or to go back home to the beginning of where we come from. Swim up the river, don't go with the flow. You'll find your way home again. It's not far to go. Our salmon is like us, you know. And this is my little painting I did when the water protectors were in North Dakota. And we were talking about water is life, which is an important part of who we are. And the return of the condor that's come back to our people, especially to the Yurok people in the territory up there, and how that person is still important for us today in our ceremonies as it was hundreds of years ago. We are still here, fix the world people. This is a panel I did, which is at HSU now in the back lobby of the Native Forum, piece to educate people there on campus about who we are as people today, not just something from the past, that we're a living culture and we still practice our culture and we still value our land. And so there's a map there in the center of the tribes of kind of Northern California. So that's it for that. And
Wow.
gotta get rid of that to stop sharing my screen. Okay.
That was
Okay.
so beautiful.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Elaine.
So Tori, can you share some of your artwork and hopes for your art and the ways you would like to influence people using your artwork?
Yes, yes, I can. How does that look for everybody? Good?
Looks good.
All right, so my ultimate hope is always that for my art is always that whoever sees it feels something inside that's good or inspiring. That's my ultimate goal. Whoops. Oh no. This is kind of confusing for me. What was the second part of the question again?
How ways that you would like to influence people using your artwork?
Oh yeah, for sure. So my goal for influencing people is just to make them think about themselves and think about their connection with who they are, whether they are native or non-native. My work mainly focuses on my cultural experiences and things that inspire me, whether that's in my culture or in nature. And I also hope to bring more representation of our culture into the world, whether that's like out, you know, printed somewhere or anywhere. Like, I just like people to see the beauty of where we come from. It makes me really happy, and because I love where we come from, and I think that our culture and our land is some of the most beautiful in the whole world. And I'm a little bit biased maybe, but I think there's a lot of people who could agree to that. So this particular piece was inspired by one of my experiences walking throughout Yurok ancestral territory and noticing how the distance between places wasn't as great of a distance when we were walking our ancestral trails, as opposed to following the roads, which actually take a lot longer because they're around the base of the mountain. I have another one which is inspired by one of my ancestors who was a doctor, and she smoked a lot of tobacco, and that really stood out to me when I heard that about her, the stories, and I thought that was really a beautiful thing. And so I was inspired to make this piece of her. Some people interpret it differently. There are different layers to this, but my interpretation is that her face looks like the land, it looks like mountains, and there's smoke, coming out of her nose and her mouth, which indicate her making medicine, but also could be viewed as smoke coming out of the mountains, indicating that there's people there. And behind her, we have one of our most important and popular basket designs. I also have this piece, which was inspired by a t-shirt that my mom gave me when I was maybe in my late teens, but there was a picture of a Southwest Indian mother and her baby, and on the bottom it just said indianyouth.org or something like that. And I just thought it was such a beautiful, intimate illustration. So I really wanted to make that and make a version of it for our culture. So this is the result of that. Yeah. And yeah, so the next one is, there's a digital illustration that I kind of like did for fun, just of wealth and kind of like what wealth represents for us. That our wealth is really indicative of a thriving, abundant, healthy ecosystem, a healthy world, a balanced world, whereas wealth in modern society is focused on currency, something that isn't as deep, whereas our version of wealth is founded on deep connections between different species and our relationships with those species. And then on the right, I just have a fun illustration that I made one time that was inspired by one of my language sessions when we were talking about sweeping, Tatoi Shodan, which means the one who sweeps. Yeah. And my last illustration that I have to share with you today goes well with the last question. So I'll go ahead and let Lynn bring that forward.
Okay. What role do you think creativity plays in bringing people together to fight for something better?
So I think that, like I said earlier, my ultimate goal for people when they see my art is to feel something good inside of themselves, to be inspired and to think about where they come from, whether they're native or non-native, and think about the things that their ancestral line and their heritage brings to the world and how that is embodied through their physical manifestation in the present time. So on that note, those types of feelings will bring individuals together because we relate to each other, not as independent people, but as people who are part of a common group with common values. And when people see art and they have those feelings, it makes them like more stronger and want to meld together better because they have this like image that we can look at and we see like, that's who I am, that's our representation. And this piece was probably the most important piece to my little baby art career that's in its very early stages. But the power of this piece is that it shows how art helps us depict things that may not be in reality quite yet. So this is a picture of the undamming of the Klamath River. It's something that has been on my mind my whole life, and it hasn't happened yet. And I made it in 2020, and I was thinking about the undamming of the Klamath River. So that's what I think is one of the powerful things about art, is just that we can envision a world through art, a world that hasn't happened yet, but the world that we want. We can create our worlds and create our visions and bring them into the light. So that helps us as we go about our daily life. We see these things, we see the undamming of the Klamath River, and every day it reminds us that the world that we're working for, the world that we haven't quite seen yet, it's right there. It's right there on the other side. So yeah, I think that it's funny. This is really like the full circle piece for me, and to close my time sharing with you, because yeah, this is kind of like the Save California Salmon piece that kind of brought me into contact with the organization, but also into contact with a lot of wonderful experiences and feelings and inspiration. So I just want to say thank you, Lynn, as well, for being such a wonderful inspiration for me as a young artist, and every person here. So yeah, that's it. Wakla and Yotawa.
Yotwa, Yotwa.
Thank you both so much. Again, I really can't say how honored I am to have all of you here. Tori and I are lucky enough to live together at this point. We're really closely related. And so being able to, keep that connection. I hear things from her that she learns from Lynn, and I've heard things from Tamaya that she learned from Susan. And I've heard, I've learned from Susan myself, and been able to share some things that Margot taught me with Tamaya and Tori. So it really just goes to show that full circle of what this knowledge does and how it is carried on. These things that I learned from Margot don't just get carried on to me. They carry on to Tori, who might mention them to Lynn, who might mention them to her daughter, who, it's really just shows that interconnectedness within all of our communities and within all of us. Susan said we all are family here. So I'm beyond honored to hold space with you all here. And again, really just want to thank you and remind all of our viewers to keep that in your mind when you're going into these spaces. There should always be a Native woman represented. There should always be a Native woman invited, because the knowledge that we hold is so important to fixing this world and holding it together. So I just want to give us a good closeout and thank all of you who joined us here in our audience. Thank all of the beautiful women who came and shared space with us. And yeah, I just really want to, reiterate that importance of the intergenerational connection between our people. I wouldn't be the person I am without having Margot touch my life. And I know Tori wouldn't be the same without Lynn. Tamaya would not be the same without Susan. And it really just shows the way that this world's supposed to work. We're supposed to be learning at the feet of our ancestors. There's absolutely no other way. Susan put it all together and said we couldn't have learned any of that from a book. And I can reiterate that. Nothing in a book has ever shaped me to change who I am and who I want to be. So I want to thank each of you women for doing that for me, and encourage you to continue doing that. I hope to take the lessons I learned today from each of you into the rest of my life, into the life of my future children, and hope that they can do the same. So with that, I think we can stop our recording, stop our live, and transition into an end. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Again, just thank you to people who joined us, who are here with these beautiful women. And if you do get the chance to speak with them, I highly encourage you to take that up.
Thank you, Yotwa, Yotwa.
Yeah.